Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Open Book Festival. It's the first morning of this event. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Star Theatre at the Homecoming Centre. This is Extraordinary Lives, Overcoming the Horrendous Impact of Apartheid. And I've got three fantastic guests here. I feel really special and honored to be sitting alongside these three people. I'm going to introduce them to you, and then we'll ask them a couple of questions, and then, of course, you guys will get the opportunity to chat to them as well. Their books are here on display, and they'll be available for sale outside. So let's start with the first guest to my left is Desiree Ellis. I think a lot of you know Desiree. She's the current coach of Banyana Banyana, the South African national women's football team, and I see you all know what they've already done. They were the first senior football side to reach the knockout rounds of a World Cup. Desiree, we are so proud of you. But Desiree was born not too far from here in Salt River, where she played football before there were any women's teams to play for. She was part of South Africa's first ever international side, who played their inaugural match in 1993, and she earned 32 national caps. She was also an ambassador for the 2010 FIFA World Cup, became coach of the national women's side in 2018, and was at the helm when they won the AFCON in Morocco last year. This is her biography. It's called Magic. It's named after her, Desiree Ellis. Then sitting next to Desiree is Sindiwe Magona, who is a doyen of South African literature. She's written over 100 children's books, plays, and short stories. Some novels, including the much-acclaimed Beauty's Gift, which earned her a Lifetime Achievement Award from Women Demand Dignity. She has 3 volumes of autobiography, and recently she became the University of the Western Cape's first ever recipient of a PhD in creative writing.
Last year.
Sindiwe was born in Retreat in 1943, and along with her family was forcibly moved to Gugulethu when she was 17. She's lived as a domestic worker and a single mom, during which time she got her BA degree by correspondence and then went on to earn a master's degree in social work from Columbia University. She spent 24 years in New York working for the United Nations and then came back to South Africa to contribute to the development of Africa. She's recently turned 80. Yeah, I mean. And her collection of essays, I Write the Yawning Void, was published by Wits University Press. It's really fantastic. I'd recommend you get a copy. And then next to Sindiwe, we've got Tariq Mellet, who is a veteran of the anti-apartheid struggle, who grew up also not too far from Desiree in the areas of Salt River, Woodstock, and District 6. In foster homes, a children's home, and an industrial trade school. Tariq became involved in politics at an early age. He was just 13 years old when he organized a protest fast against the killing of Imam Abdullah Haroon. He joined a trade union at the age of 16 and rejected tick-box ideas of identity, which has come to define much of his work. He refused to serve in the SANDF, joined Umkhonto we Sizwe, started the Peninsula Workers' Forum, and edited an underground newspaper called Young Voice. He has a Master of Science from Buckinghamshire University with a dissertation titled Heritage Tourism, Cape Slavery and Indigenous People. And he's been awarded a Western Cape Provincial Honours Award for his work on the intangible cultural heritage of the Cape. Tariq describes himself as an African democratic socialist and an anti-colonial liberationist in the left tradition. He has 3 books: The Lie of 1652, A Decolonized History of Land, the one we're going to talk about, Cleaner's Boy, and a new one, which I believe is outside for sale. So these are our 3 guests. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much to the 3 of you. I'm really looking forward to chatting. And Desiree, we have to start with you. You've come back from an incredible World Cup. It's been a great year of women's sport. The cricket team reached the final of the World Cup. We had the netball World Cup here. You've made history. And suddenly we've got loads of young girls who've got role models that they can look up to. You mentioned in your book growing up without that. What does it feel like to have been part of that change and to know that young girls have something to aspire to?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm truly blessed to be here. I think it's important for the generations to create opportunities for the generations to come. I think when I started playing, as you said, I lost my job when I started playing for the national team. But creating opportunities for others is why we're here. I think we're not on earth just to be, but we're on earth to put a smile on someone's face or create an opportunity. And if we can, instill some stuff where the next generations to come will be better off, that's what it's about, because the generations in football have tried to change things along the way, and it's gotten better. It's not where we want to be, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, so I don't know how many of you guys sitting here know, but Desiree used to work in a butcher shop and went off to play Swaziland, and the bus broke down. And so she missed her day at work and ended up losing her job because she was playing for the national football team. So it's not like that anymore.
No, it's not like that anymore. We try and communicate with bosses if we can, but we haven't had a problem. It's just players that study. Sometimes they have to write exams, and we allow them to write the exams in camp. Because when I played for the national team, 99.9% was unemployed, didn't have jobs. There was maybe 3. Now 99.9% have degrees. So it shows how things have changed.
Yeah, that's phenomenal to see and hear, and such a huge change from the times when you were playing. And I think, Desiree, it's the absences, right? There was an absence of role models for you, but now there's a presence, and you are among that presence. And I just want to move to Sindiwe, because when we talk about these absences, Desiree's life had this absence of female role models. But for you, and what I've got from your reading, is this absence of people either taking action or doing the wrong action, as far as you're concerned. And you've kind of written that provokes you into writing and into having something to say. And your writing comes from the disappointment, the pain, and the anger of all of that. I think that must be quite a difficult process. And I want you to maybe talk to us a little bit about how you have to find it in you to write, given the pain.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. My writing really comes from a point of not knowing, but caring deeply. I don't know how to write. I didn't learn to write. I didn't study writing. But the older I grew, the more I perceived things, I realized I needed to write. Because if you talk about role models, each generation stands on the shoulders of the preceding ones. When my first book came out, I was almost 50, I was 49. And at a conference I attended, a writer's conference soon thereafter, a professor, people who studied things, said, since black women, Bantu in apartheid terminology, started being published in the 20s or before, 1920s, in 1990, when my first book came out, only 5 had been published. So when I was growing up, I didn't know black women could write books. That thought never occurred to me. You can't miss what you never saw. It's as simple as that. And then this man went on to say, and it's not only in South Africa, throughout Africa, African women writers will write a book or two, autobiographical even when they call it a novel, and then they disappear. I made up my mind right then I was not going to disappear. And I have been successful in that. Even last night when we were at the book bash thing, when I look at South African young women who look like me, who are writers, they may not know, and I don't care, they don't know. The fact is they are growing up with people who look like them. Doing this thing we call writing is enough. It is enough for children to grow up seeing things, good things happen, done by people who resemble them. So that's why I keep on writing. I don't write novels, children's books. I write anything and everything. My writing comes from a point of provocation. I get angry, I get sad, I get upset. And because perhaps I'm a coward, I won't go and do what needs to be done physically. I write about it. All my books have been provoked out of me by something. You ask me why, this new book is a book of essays. It's in 3 parts. It's a journey into writing. And then the middle section is about the things South Africans, are not talking about that we should be dealing with, like poverty and racialism, that kind of race. The title is actually, We Are All Racists. We are, and it's such a freeing thing. Read the essay. I'm a racist, you are a racist, we all are. There is no escape, but I have found freedom in this acknowledgement and understanding a deep account other people. It's such a good thing to see truth at last. And I write from that kind of way. Something provokes me. So my response is in writing.
Thanks, Sindiwe. I think it's also quite evident that it's from a place of great passion. Tariq, I'd like to ask you a little bit on what Sindiwe was hinting at there, this idea of racialism, the fact that we've come from so many different places, and you speak about that in your book, the many heritage lines that you've traced in your family, but then also from an absence point of view, your absent father, who you thought was dead until you were much older. And, this is a thing we face in South Africa a lot. We've got a kind of pandemic of absent fathers. So I'd like to ask you how that and discovering your heritage influenced this work.
Sure. For me, it's been quite a long journey. And in fact, when writing that particular book, I found myself crying a lot, and having to stop at moments because of traumas that come up from the past. I come from a family which I suppose are multi-ethnic, multi-continental, and of course, when apartheid came along, it wasn't just something out there that we didn't like, it was something that was affecting us as a family, as we were being put into different boxes. And I rebelled against that. And, my mother was a simple working woman. She started working when she was 13, 10 cents a day for a 7-day week. Later went into the garment industry and then into laundry shops. And I was very, very much aware that we were poor and that we were multi-ethnic in our makeup. And I was homeless. Literally, my mother had to give me to other people from the age of 0 till 7. I had been in 4 foster families already. I went into a children's home after that. Very cruel place. And so I grew up a very angry young man. So when I went out to work when I was 15, 16, I already had very sharp ideas about what was right and what was wrong with our society. My mother would always say, Boetie, you better shut up because they'll put a rope around your neck and you'll swing. She used to say that to me a lot. I couldn't hold my mouth, and I ended up, in conflict with the security police when I was a teenager already. And it was a difficult childhood, and in fact, I found that life from there on was still going to be difficult in many ways, exiled for 13 years and so on. But I still say to myself that it was a fortunate life in another way, in that I, from a very young age, had to fend for myself, and it allowed me to think independently. There wasn't parents. My mother used to tell me when my father died, that circle in Salt River.
Yeah.
She used to describe the accident even, and how he was killed, the works. And when I started working at 16, this guy a car started to idle next to me, and I thought it was somebody asking for directions. So I stopped, and the man said, "Listen, I'm your father." So I said, "No, my father's dead." He said, "Don't you be funny with me, you little scolly, you're stealing my money." And apparently my mother was getting 5 rand papgeld a month from him, and this was me stealing his money. I never saw him again till many, many years. I saw my father twice in my life. That time and then another time much later when I went in search of my real name, and I found I had, in fact, instead of being one of one, I was one of 13 children, with 4 mothers and one sire. We don't call him a father, a sire, because he just did not, put his hat down everywhere that he wanted to. But you know, there's a kind of humor about it all, but there's also a deep pain and sadness about it all. And it's that drove me to fight and to not accept my station in life. We were told that you belong there, you know, and you should be this. So because I was fair-skinned, both my grandmothers were what would classified as colored, and my grandfathers were classified as white. And our family, in fact, to this day now, and this is one of the things I appreciate today, is that in the younger generation, the intermarriage with Nama, with Griqua, with Xhosa, with Chinese, with Southeast Asian, with Indian, the whole United Nations in our family. That's what I fought for recognition. When I grew up, you weren't allowed to. You had to be a something that they could put in a box. And if you were put into that box and you happened to be poor on top of it, I mean, I went out to work when I was just ending my 15th year. I earned 10 Rand a week for a 6-day week, a 10-hour day. It was difficult, but I studied at night. Eventually, when I was 43, I got my master's degree, and not by going to university, by studying part-time. And, you know, that is the struggle that we grew up with, and it's the kind of synergy that exists between the three of us here, that it didn't come easy. It was extremely hard, but, you know, I think Maya Angelou talks about it, you know, and still we rise. We always had to rise above adversity, and still we rise. And now we are paying it forward with the next generation, young people. I'm actually so proud this week because about 22 years ago, I fostered somebody who, in fact, we fostered each other because I got her the first job and so on. But not going to university once, full-time. She did it part-time. BA, honors, masters, and last week she handed in her doctorate dissertation on the mining industry. And she came from Elsie's River, and she had absentee parents and so on, and that. We can do it. I'm specifically talking to young people here. Never mind what the obstacles are, you can do it. It doesn't come easy. It's not going to be an easy ride. It wasn't for us, but you can do it.
Are you talking about my essay on poverty? The title is Do Not Choose Poverty. Sorry.
No, Sindiwe, that's great because you read my mind. That was my next question to you, was on that essay specifically, which I've read and really highly recommend it to everyone. It sounds like a rallying cry to me that people can get themselves out of their circumstances.
If I did, you can. Of course. The thing is, there's nothing particularly special about me. I know me. But when I was 23, my second book of autobiography is called Forced to Grow. Forced to grow. The kind of growing you have to do when you thought you were already grown and life teaches you, 23, pregnant, not first pregnancy. This is not a lesson about what to do, young ladies. It's about what to not do. I'm expecting my third child at 23. Husband runs away. This is during apartheid. I'm not a South African. We were not South Africans. We didn't have passport. We couldn't have passport. Plus, I couldn't apply for help from the government. We didn't qualify by virtue of the fact the government had decided we were not South Africans. I couldn't go to the Child Welfare Association. It did exist for white kids, colored kids, and Asiatic kids. Those are the classifications of that time. So, of course, I got angry, blamed the government, blamed the absent husband, blamed society, because there is nothing amaXhosa looked down upon quite as a husbandless woman with children. Idigas. Returnee from wifehood. Umabuye kwendeni. You are everybody's joke. But that didn't change my life. What did is my eventually coming to the conclusion, it's me who has to change me. I thought of my children. My parents who could barely read or write. Neither of them had a certificate from school. They didn't finish primary school. Had sent me through school. I'd finished JC, half of high school, did a 2-year teacher training program only for black people. People classified colored or white or Asiatic had to have matric before they could train as teachers. Oh no, the government was very soft on us. We could be teachers without matric. Go figure. Anyway, I felt I was highly educated. I was the first person to get that kind of education in my family. But there I was, husbandless, a single parent. And of course, then every teacher, woman teacher, if you were married, you lost your job automatically. It had nothing to do with race. You have a breadwinner, so you don't need the job. He's gone. You're still married legally. He's gone. It didn't help. I went to domestic work. But I learned a lesson. My parents had done so much for me. I needed to do more for my children. While I was in domestic work, I vowed neither of my 2 daughters will ever be domestic workers. My son will not be a garden boy. I don't look down on those jobs. But while I was doing them, it felt to me that this should be a stepping stone to something else. When I saw 3 generations, grandmother is working as the domestic worker, mother is, and you are 16 and you are going to this, something is wrong. It's no stepping stone. So I thought, the only way I can better my life and give a better chance to my children is by education. My matric is correspondence. GCE, correspondence. BA, correspondence, till I got the scholarship to go and do a master's degree at Columbia University. Each time I got a better qualification, I got a better job. My life changed. That's why I say do not choose poverty. Life happens. You will be in the dumps. Don't sit there. You are choosing poverty. Find a way out. And when you do, there's ample help around. There is a lot of help for people who are trying to do better for themselves. There are scholarships. There are all kinds of things inside here in South Africa and outside. You want to be somebody, you will be. You just have to work and open your eyes. There is ample help. I have people who have become dentists and technologists and things who are not my children. But I said, here's a scholarship, because all I can do, I have no money. I can fit need with opportunity. Need, opportunity. You have a need, you're working hard. There's no reason you can't reach the stars in education. And if you were born poor, education is the surest way out of poverty.
Yeah, that's amazing. Desiree, I think this speaks to what you were talking about earlier, because a lot of your players have degrees, they're studying, and that is a way for them to ensure that they'll have a life after football. But also, when Sindiwe speaks about how we can work our own way out of difficult circumstances, for a long time I feel that's what women's sport had to do before corporates and government got involved. How do you see that picture, and is it now time for somebody to give you an extra little push?
I think it's definitely time. I said I needed to be in a room with sponsorship gurus to find out more what women need to do. You look at Caster Semenya, she's been a beacon of hope for a very long time. KG, the wheelchair tennis player, she's got a couple of sponsors. Banana's got one sponsor, which is Cecil. I think as a corporate sponsor, 2 successive Olympics, 2 successive World Cups, the last 16, WAFCON champion, 4 successive COSAFA Cups. What more does the team have to do? But I think with women, we have to do that extraordinary to get the recognition. And that is why when they are negotiating, they know what they deserve. And they will stand up and fight for what they deserve. Because it's not just financial, but it's also respect because of what they've done and what they've sacrificed. I mean, I lost my job. I was out of work for 3 years. And at the age of 30, by the way. So I was out of work, but I had to make a sacrifice because that was my dream, playing for the national team. When our former late president, Nelson Mandela, was released, I got the opportunity to try it for the national team. And back in the days, as you said, we traveled with a minibus, came back late, but look where I am now. Not long after that, I got the opportunity to go and get a UAFB license. But I had to think about 4 months away from home, not having a job, possibly losing the house, possibly losing the car. So I had to make that sacrifice as well. And as she says, you know, you choose. And sometimes the choices that you make has consequences. And sometimes you get a second chance or a third chance, but you choose at the time what to do. And I've always loved the game of football since a very young age. And football has taken me places that I never thought I could go to. Football has given me opportunities that I never thought I would have, but that is a choice I made. And back then, it wasn't the norm for girls to play football. You know, I was told that I wanted to be a boy. I regularly had to pull down my pants because people used to say, girls don't play football like that. But I just wanted to play what I love doing, and I urge parents to allow kids to be and do whatever they want to do. Not what parents want them to do, but what they want to do, because each and every one sitting here has a God-given talent, and sometimes you play the sport or you go into a direction where your friend is, but that's not your talent. When you find what you're good at, pursue it with all your heart. As she said, as Cindy said, pursue it with all your heart. There's always somebody out there that will mentor you. My late father used to be the one that used to take me everywhere. And we're trying to mentor the new generations coming up. There's always somebody that will help you. There's always an opportunity. And you might think it's not for you. I'm in a male-dominated environment, and I remember former Miss Universe, Rosie said, that space there, it hasn't got a name on. There's no male or female. But we are afraid to step out of our comfort zones. We are afraid to step out and take that opportunity. Because what is the worst thing that can happen? You fail. And through that, you survive and you get success. We didn't go to the Olympics after the World Cup, and that was most probably the biggest downer compared to the highlight of qualifying. But it pushed us a little bit further. And there will be little bumps in the road. But that happens because that builds character. That sets you on the right path. And I come from a Nova Park, and everybody knows what happens in a Nova Park. But I'm the beacon of hope for a young girl there, that if I can, then you can.
Desiree, just very quickly, you spoke about getting your opportunity to try out for the national team after Nelson Mandela's release. Sport was segregated before that, and I just want to reflect a little bit on that legacy of segregation. I don't know if a lot of people understand that, like, it wasn't that people couldn't play for national teams, it was that they literally weren't allowed to. So just what does it feel like now coaching a team with a lot of diversity and girls from different backgrounds and knowing that everybody's got that opportunity?
I think it's fantastic that we have gotten that opportunity, first of all, to try out. And, you know, I grew up in a home where everybody was welcomed. And for me, that was the start of great friendship and great camaraderie. Players that I've played with 1993, I'm still friends with those players, and we still interact. And the opportunities that come now is opportunities for everyone. A lot of our players go abroad. A lot of our players study abroad. Some of them study here. And some of the players like Tembi and Jermaine and them that have gone abroad have degrees already. You see, so back in the day, there weren't many opportunities. Back in the day, I remember traveling with a provincial team and going to KZN and we got there a day early and going into a caravan park, and we had a white manager, and when she went in, it was okay. When they saw the faces, we had to sleep on the beach. We had to sleep on the beach in the bus because we were not allowed to go into that caravan park because of that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a really good reflection to think of how far we've come. And Tariq, I just want to ask you, you speak about this kind of division, but then also a commonality and a universality of what we all are as humans. And that's kind of where we're hoping to reach in our sporting landscape, but also in our cultural landscape. And maybe you could just reflect a little bit on the multi-faith influence that you describe in your book, you know, having found spirituality from Catholicism, from Islam, from Buddhism, from shamanism, and then how we should maybe work against these identity boxes and to a more holistic understanding of what we are as human beings.
Sure. Look, in going out and facing these struggles from a small child through my teens and my adulthood, if I didn't have some form of spirituality that assisted me. When you're absolutely on your own, you talk to yourself. And, people talk about the good angel and the bad angel or the devil. To me, I discovered early in life that there was some kind of angel out there that I could talk to, bounce things off, who told me when I was doing things wrong and so on. When I first embarked on this road when I was 8 years old, there was a nun in District 6, a German woman, who had a devotion to a Peruvian saint, San Martino de Porres, from Lima in Peru, whose mother had been a slave. And it was then when I asked this nun, what is a slave? And she told me, you come from people who were once enslaved. And she taught me at that early age about this. So the spiritual dimension starts very early. But in District 6, there were Xhosa people, there were Chinese people, there were Christians, there were Muslims, there were people from India, there were Jews, there was a whole range of peoples. And I began to become aware that there were these different faiths that these people held. And I had a lot of time for thinking, especially in the children's home where you're absolutely on your own and you're being beaten up until you bleed every day, and forced to scrub passages and so on as a child. In your head, something has to keep you alive. And it's through this process that I developed over time what I call a syncretic faith. So there are parts of my faith that are rooted in Catholicism, in Islam, in Buddhism, and in African traditional faiths. I've taken the best that all of these offer into one. So I feel comfortable if I go into a mosque, I feel comfortable in a church, I feel comfortable in a temple, or I feel comfortable in a group of people doing a traditional ceremony. So there are things that are common in all of these faiths. And two of the things that are common are saints or ancestors and a spiritual path. In fact, my one name Tariq means the person who has taken a spiritual path. Without that, I couldn't have found the strength that I needed to overcome a lot of things. Being arrested, being abused by police and military, forced into exile with a child on your arms and no food and having to rely on the help of strangers, all of this. The thing that kept one going was the sense of faith. What is important to me too is that throughout my life I experienced what I call othering. And with othering comes diminutizing. And at the end of the day, it allows a person who has othered others to assault that person without thinking that they're a person at all. And so my whole approach to faith and spirituality has been around the respect, the universal respect for humanity, that if there's any hatred that I have, it is the hatred against when people's rights, dignity, etc. are removed, or when people are put into little boxes and then shifted to the margins and to the sidelines. It's a very important part of the struggle that has been my life. And throughout all of this, as I said earlier on, you can either feel sorry for yourself and say, you're a victim, or you can say, no, I am rising above this adversity. I have 26 people over history in my family who were enslaved in their lifetime from Africa and from India and from Southeast Asia. I have 5 Khoi who were forced into servitude on farms and so on. And then, of course, I have a whole bunch of Europeans as well, part of my ancestry. If I cut off any one of these, I wouldn't be me. And so it's having that consciousness. And the big thing when people say to me, who are you? What are you? I say, I'm a person who was born of a people who rose above adversity. The worst adversity of colonialism, of slavery, of apartheid, we rose and we still rise.
So last one from me for Sindiwe before we hand over to the audience. Sindiwe, that essay of yours, we are all racists. I I just want to end with some thoughts on that, because we've spoken a lot today about how we can see ourselves as different from each other, but also how we can see ourselves as the same. And to ask you, should we be actively trying to become anti-racist or non-racist, or is there a cure for racism?
Read my essay.
I've read it!
We are all racist. Addresses exactly that none of us is sightless. Human beings have eyes, so we see. It's natural. Human beings have skin. We all live inside our skins. Remove the skin, we are the same. But we look at the skin, we see difference. So we are racist. But that is natural. So don't ever go around saying, I don't see color, because that's really just, I don't know what it is. I won't even call it stupid. It's just something I don't understand. You are human, you see color. It's there and it's natural. What is not good is when you interpret that to mean anything about the person at whom you are looking. This means nothing. You don't look at my skin color and think you know me. I can't look at your skin color and think, it means absolutely nothing. That's what that essay is about. But generations, decades, no, centuries of bad learning. We have been taught, all of us throughout the world, not only in South Africa, that skin color has meaning. And this is something everybody has inside them. We learned it voluntarily or involuntarily. We have it inside us. All you can do, all I can do, is call myself out when I see that in my interaction with you, I used your skin color. Did you insult me? Am I more insulted because you are white? Would that be different if you were not white? We all have it in us, but we must just accept who we are. It comes from centuries of indoctrination. You cannot escape it. You couldn't have escaped it. You didn't escape it. Accept that. You are fragile because you have these attitudes about other people. Do you like these attitudes? Keep them. You don't like them? Chuck them out, which is what I'm busy doing. But none of us escaped being racialist. Racist is really, for me, something different. Racialism is when you use skin color to mean something about somebody. And when you look at it, you find we are all guilty, you are guilty, I'm guilty. Therefore, the thing to do is to see anew, realize that we are all one. You cannot say the human race is one race and then start subdividing people because of skin color. We are one race, the human race. Skin color has nothing to do with it. What it means is that we were nearer the sun, nearer the equator, far away, or that kind of thing. But I'm not the only person saying that. It's been proven by science that it means nothing. And talk to you, the late Professor Francis Wilson. I think this was his last book. It starts with a D, and then it goes to diamonds and democracy. What's the first word? Dinosaurs, thank you. Dinosaurs. I'm 80, guys. Dinosaurs, diamonds, and democracy. A small book, is really small, a concise history of South Africa. I've talked about this. He speaks about the people who were classified colored, and he got some scientists' research about what it means. And I thought, my God, I wish I had been classified colored, because Francis Wilson, a very astute brain, says, he quotes this, that the population classified colored in South Africa. If you go throughout the world, these people contain or exhibit the widest range of DNA. Well, if I had been classified colored, nobody could put me down. You Greek, I'm Greek. You Italian, I'm Italian. Look at me, I'm German. Look at me, I'm English. I am everybody. Be proud of your heritage. We mustn't be ashamed of who we are. We are who we are. Let's enjoy it.
That is a fantastic note to open up to you guys. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll do one at a time, and you can just address whichever of our panelists you'd like to answer. We have one over here in the front. I think a microphone is coming to you. It's just round here. Oh, I see it in the distance. Do you have a very loud voice? Okay, go for it. And please tell us your name.
Exposed where? Look, I've been coached by male coaches in the past, and for me, I've never experienced that personally, but I do know that others have. We try to have a safe environment as possible. I think during the World Cup, there were safeguarding officers around to make sure that if anything happened, that players were able to speak to them. I think I come from a background of a mother caring, and she always says to me, make sure you treat people the same way that you want to be treated. And we have an open door policy in our team that they can come and speak to us about anything. We also have a psychologist in our camp that makes sure that players can reach out to her. I think it's really important to treat people the way you want to be treated, but it's also important to know where they come from. It's also important to make sure that they're okay before you even think about the game. We have an ethos that's called teamwork. It's not just on the field, but off the field, where we regularly check upon each other and make sure that we're okay, because when we come into camp, it's all about football. But I think it needs to be stamped out. I think FIFA have taken a big stand on that. You look at the president of the Spanish FA, he's been suspended for 90 days, and everybody stood up. In the Spanish league, the men's national team, I thought their comments came a bit late. It could have come sooner. And everybody's standing up against that. And, FIFA's got to take a really big stand there and make sure that it doesn't happen again. I'm interested to know what's going to happen after the 90 days, because he has insisted that he's not going to resign. I think the federation should just fire him, because they fired the coach. They should just take that stand, because it's unacceptable in women's sport. It's unacceptable, and I see many are appointing female coaches, but there's also a different level of abuse coming from some female coaches, and I think a firm stand needs to be taken by federations when they do that, to really look into the background of people to see if there's any, things in the closet that they don't know of before appointing an individual, because I think it's just so inhumane. And I'm glad that FIFA has taken that step, because we have to root it out of women's sports, whether it's male or female, because it happens both ways.
Yeah, thanks, Desiree. That's just Desiree reflecting on, for those who are not sure, Luis Rubiales kissing Jenny Hermoso on the mouth after Spain won the Football World Cup. So we've got one here that I can see, and then just a little bit in front for the next one. Oh, we can barely see.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary stories, and might I aid in these extraordinary times. My name is Simba. I'm also known by the Christian name Stuart. Everybody was named something different at some point. So if one were to sum up some of your lives, and I stand corrected, anger is still a big part of it, and yet you are so humble. Where do you find that balance?
Can I go?
Tariq or Sindiwe, who wants to take that?
Anger. Anger is natural. You experience something, it doesn't please you, it makes you angry. But you must learn to direct your anger. It achieves absolutely nothing on its own. it should drive you to action. Do something about what has made you angry. What does that mean? You want to live a good life. You don't want to end up in jail. Somebody does something and you feel like killing them. It is against the law to kill people, even people who have wronged you. So you do something that is legal, that is not sinful or evil. In the final analysis, learn that you can remove yourself from a toxic situation. Remove yourself from a toxic situation, but do something about what it is. Look at yourself. What called that to you? What called that action to you? And do something about. I was very angry, as I said, when my husband abandoned us with the children. But being angry wasn't going to achieve anything. It was my fitting myself for a better job, being more attractive to people who were looking for, employers that would get me out of that situation. Anger on its own, unless it's managed to extricate you from the situation and get to a place where you are happier, removed from the toxic space. Anger on its own, be angry, but do something that either changes the situation and makes it better or removes you from that situation.
In my case, we don't always get what we need when we are preparing, and most times when I come to camp, I am exhausted because I have to fight over things that I don't have to fight about. But we trust what we do. I've surrounded myself with a lot of expertise, and we watch each other's back, and we look at what the end goal is, especially during WAFCON, for example. Many countries were playing international friendlies, and we didn't have one. But we just got the group together and said what we wanted to achieve, and through that we stayed focused. Yes, social media is another evil, and we just try to stay off it. My assistant coach will always tell me, when we go into tournaments, when we go into matches, it's time, and then I know I need to go off. And I will sometimes get a message from mentors and say, close your ears, or close your eyes, and I'm trying to. We just trust the process because, as you say, it's not going to change. Yes, you're still angry, but it's not going to change. You just carry on and make sure that you do the job at hand. And the end result is that. I mean, a lot of things happen where you don't get the fixtures you want, you get into camp a bit late. You then have to improvise, because if you're going to stay angry, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. So surround yourself with people that have similar mindsets to you, have similar likes to you, and will watch your back. Because the most important thing is, I don't work alone. I work with a group, and I've got to get a group together that has the same ambition, whether it be the players or the coaches I work with.
Yeah, thanks, Desiree. I think there's one here and then one quite far back, if I'm not mistaken. I want to make sure everyone gets to ask.
Wasila. I have a comment rather than, I just want to say I'm very honored to be here and with a fantastic panel. And I'm basically similar to Desiree and Patric, as in my designation name, which I don't like to use in our country, because I'm also proud of my mixed race that I have, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit everywhere. Every religion is also in me. But I don't like the term colored. That's a social construct. I don't like using it. I don't like it being used. And I actually don't like people even saying proudly, but I'm colored. I hate that more than anything else. And that comes to anger. That makes me angry. But I like the term, and I think I actually got it first from Patric in a sense, maybe, I'm not sure, is I like to call myself Camisa African. I'm a Camisa African. And I can remember when the census came around to my place a short while ago, I had all these tick boxes. And then I said, but none of them, I don't identify with any of those. So the young lady, she was young, and she said to me, what should she write? So I said, what is on this? So she said, there's others. So I said, okay, write Camisa African. And she looked at me and she said, but that's nowhere here. I don't know, can I write that? I said, just write it. It should be there. It should really be there. That's my comment. And thank you so, so much. I'm really very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wasila.
There's a hand here.
Tariq, are you able to comment on that? There's just a question in the front here, I think. We maybe have time for this one and one quick one more if Tariq keeps his answer very short. Maybe just after this.
Hi guys, my name is Lilita. Throughout the whole conversation, I've heard you guys speak about how much progress we've made, right? I don't know if anyone knows this, but South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. So my question to you, or whoever wants to answer, it's open. Do you guys genuinely believe that apartheid is over? Because in a post-apartheid South Africa, we are still heavily segregated in terms of the areas we live in, service delivery. We still think that black skin is synonymous with criminality, white skin is synonymous with innocence. And so with all of this, of course we've made progress and we aren't as heavily segregated, but do all of you guys genuinely believe that it is over?
Sure, what a great question, Tariq.
Certainly it's not over. Everything that motivated me when I was a child still, teen, to get involved in the struggle, everything is still here. We have made some progress at some level, can't deny that. We have a youth population 70% unemployed. We have people living in shanty towns much bigger than even when I was small. We have incidents of individual racism, violence, racial violence that is happening particularly in rural areas in which the victim is black people. When I say black, I mean colored, black, Indian, whatever, people who are not Europeans. All of those things still exist, and it exists at a level which none of us can sit back and say, well, the struggle is over. It's not over. That struggle continues. It will continue after I die. And my message to you as young people is don't be complacent about this. Do as I and other young people did when we were young. Say no, it's not acceptable. We talked about anger, and that I still feel very angry. There's a lot around me that I see to be angry about. But that anger must be motivational. It must make you do something about it. If, you go into the shop, and on a daily basis in the shop, I look at the attitude of white people to the people who are serving them behind the tills, and that it's like they own people, rude, and so on. I say something about it there and then. I cause a commotion. I take action. That is what we need to do. Extremely important. Don't let anybody tell you, I come from a liberation movement, and that party which I do not recognize anymore, it's not what I joined. It's betrayed people in many ways. Keep on telling people that, hey, we're doing the best. We've done the wonderful things. We should be working so that we don't even have sleep to make things change. And we're not doing that. And instead we have a political estate across the different political parties of people who have enriched themselves, corrupted. If we take all the money that went into corruption and invested it into getting rid of shanty towns, so that people have proper houses, that we have proper built environments, proper schools, and so on. We could have done it. We're not a basket case country. So I share that anger that I hear that's in your heart, and like what we've done, because now I'm getting older and sick and so on, you guys with your energy must do something about it. Relating to the term Camisa African, we have established a museum at the castle here called the Camisa Museum, in which we look at the 195 roots of origin, multi-continental, multicultural, multi-ethnic, that exists in many of us in South Africa. not only people who were classified as colored. If you go into every single social group in South Africa, it's multi-ethnic. I can tell you, I've studied it. Whether you're Zulu, Xhosa, colored, Indian, whatever, we have a great degree of multiculturality. And what we're saying as people who reject these silos, these boxes, we said we're proudly Camisa African. Camisa simply means sweet drinking water for all. And water, we know, gives life. And the river that flowed through Cape Town still flows underground, covered over by infrastructure, was the Camisa River. So it's not a race, it's not a color, it's not an ethnicity. It is simply a point of reference, which we call the Camisa embrace. Nobody is left out. So it's not just an alternative term for colored. It is a term that breaks through the silos and says, you know, if I want to say who I am, and somebody asks me who I am, I'll say I'm proudly Camisa African, and I'm proud to come from a people who have risen above adversity. So that is my piece.
Thank you so much. I know there's a question up there. I'm under very strict instruction to end at 11, and it's my first time here, so I don't want to get into trouble. So if you can ask it super quickly, and if the answer, you guys, can be super quick, we can take it. You might have to shout.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the great inputs. It's so wonderful to have our wisdom people and our leaders and our champions here. I want to ask a question about each of our so-called groups in South Africa. Someone said that it's only through contact time that we will win over racism. So to each of you, what can we do to enable contact time among each other? Because unless we work together, unless someone's child go to school together, there is no contact. And when we come to a space like this, we will stay in this corner, I will stay in that corner, because we are still staying in all these different separate spatial blocks in South Africa. So what can we do? I'm upstairs. What can we do? What can we do in order to facilitate and to enable contact time?
No wonder we couldn't find you.
Yes, Mama. Yeah, so thank you for that. That is the one question. And to Desiree, perhaps, some little challenge. I want to ask why is your team not reflecting the diverse demography of South Africa? When I as an activist, you know, we are among the struggle, we are among everyone. But then if I'm in the leadership position, I compensate and I put, you know, more so-called Africans. And so is there something that we internalize about? No, I don't want to put that one there because they're going to think I'm racist. No. Just something.
I can answer that to you.
Okay, so 30 seconds each, guys.
I can answer that.
Is there nobody good enough?
I can answer that quickly. I select on what I see. I don't select on who. If that person adds value to the team, that person is in the team. That is how I select. There's a certain criteria we select on. And I come from the Western Cape, and I was recently at a tournament. I am shocked at how backwards football has gone in the Western Cape, and I've been honest about it. The young talent coming up is in abundance. But for the senior national team, and people think because I come from the Western Cape that I have to select players from the Western Cape. I select players on who fits into how I want to play, and it doesn't matter which province they come from. That is how I select, because at the end of the day, I've got to select the best players, and maybe you're the best player in your team, but there's a certain way that we play, and that's the reason why maybe you don't get selected, and maybe a new coach comes in and feels they want to build their team around you, and that is how I select the team, the best players that I think will possibly do the job.
Thank you. Sindiwe, I'm timing you.
Quick. In the olden days, we were barred by law to mix and mingle. There's no law stopping you now. If you are still living a racialistic kind of life, monochrome, if all your friends are the same skin color as you, the same language group as you, then you haven't done your work. Get up and find other people. Don't belong to the same church that your father, mix around. It's not the law anymore. You can mix, you can have friends who speak different languages. Get around. We must leave the place.
Yes, so that's
It's
an
not my
instruction
job.
now. We have to leave. Everybody, please talk to somebody who doesn't look like you when you leave this room. Thank you very much, Desiree Ellis, Sindiwe Magona, and Tariq Mellet. Thank you, everyone.